I'm Joanne Banco, author, designer, and sewing educator. And today I'm so excited to share all different tips and techniques for you for adding machine embroidery to most any garment. You know, machine embroidery is so popular. It's probably one of the biggest phenomenons in embellishing in recent sewing time, for sure. Embroidery is everywhere in ready-mades, and now you can copy that yourself with any different type of machine and lots of different hoop sizes. So let me show you a few of my samples, and then I'll give you some of my tips and tricks. We're going to embroider something for you today, too. Take a look at the garments I have on the dress forms. Denim is a perfect thing to embellish with embroidery, and it's great if you're just starting out. Most embroiderers that start out want to do t-shirts, sweatshirts, and some, simple things, but then you want to advance and start getting a little bit more creative. So take a look at the denim jacket, the dress, the yellow jacket here, the knit. This is an example of embroidery that's done both on-site and off-site. And I'll show you in a minute what I mean by that. But there are times when you can't get something in a hoop and you're not able to embroider directly on the garment. So I've got an idea for you for that as well. And then my gray denim jacket with my little lonesome dove here up on the corner. I'm going to spin this around so that you can see that I've decorated the whole back. I've got a blank denim jacket on today, just begging to be embroidered. And this is the perfect place to add lots of machine embroidered embellishment. So the first thing we want to talk about is planning, and then prepping, and then precisely hooping our fabric, our garment, for embroidery. So let's talk about the planning stages. Very often, if you look at this gray sample I have here, I will buy felt in different colors, and I will test my embroidery designs for color and maybe even for size on a simple piece of felt. It's a very easy way to just give it a practice run. I really believe in testing, and it all works out in the long run, even though it takes you just a little bit of time and just a little bit of thread. You'll learn a lot of lessons. When it comes to actually embroidering on the garment, though, we want to pick designs that will coordinate with our fabric. So this yellow blouse here is a perfect example. It's a lightweight, soft blouse, so I've chosen a lightweight, soft embroidery design to coordinate it with it. Denim can take a lot more of heavy type stitches, but density in stitches is very important. So make note of that. Very often I will go ahead and go to the fabric store and try to find a piece of fabric that closely matches what I want to do the embroidery on. My white dress here that I've got on this little table is a perfect example of this. When I found this dress, I thought it was just begging for embroidery, especially with this beautiful copper zipper. So I went to the fabric store, bought a little bit of yardage of fabric that's very similar. Doesn't have to be same color, that's not as important. But I was able to test stitch my design with the stabilizer that I would normally use, and I've got plans to embellish this right up here in this back shoulder area. Now, this is where we get into some of the more techniques that we need to think through a little bit before we actually embroider, because this garment is lined. So what do you think I had to do? Well, I took my handy dandy seam ripper and I simply opened out the lining. If you can see that, I just literally took a few stitches out and opened that up so that now when I go to embroider that little flower right up on that shoulder, I can open that up and lay it perfectly flat. Let me just smooth that out for you. If you need to rip out a little bit more, you can do that. But make sure that you've got all of the excess fabric out of the way. All right, we've talked about planning designs. Now we're talking about prepping, and that all involves stabilizer. If you look over here in the corner of the table, I've got rolls and rolls of stabilizer. There are lots of ways to stabilize fabric, but there are some really good basics that you're going to use very often. One of those is cutaway. Cutaway comes in light, it comes in heavy. And then we've got tearaways, and tearaways come in different forms of adhesive types, and also we have washaways that come in different forms. So all of those have different purposes. We're going to give you a free tip sheet to go along with this lesson so that you can match up some of those stabilizers with the different types of techniques you want to do. Now, I talked about that yellow jacket. And when I talked about that yellow jacket, I said that part of that was on-site embroidery, embroidered directly on the garment. Again, I had to unpick the lining a little bit to get that smooth flat, but the lapel, there was no way I could hoop that. So I chose to embroider, like I have this little sample here with the red flowers, on a piece of netting. And then I simply layered it on top of the collar and zigzag stitched around it. Very, very simple. We talked about planning, we talked about preparation, now we're going to talk about placement. Placement can be done very easily by simple measuring, and I'll show you that in a minute. But depending on your tools, depending on whether or not you have software or other possibilities built into your machine, you can make that placement just a little bit more precise. Templates are one way you can do that. I've printed off a template of a design that I'm going to add to this dress. It's a same type of element, embroidery design, that I have here on the lower part. And what a template does for you, gives you a full, accurate, life-size picture of the actual embroidery design in its exact orientation, with even showing the top. And templates can be printed on vellum paper so that you can see through your garment when you're placing that. But you can also print templates on regular paper. And there's a lot of different ways you can use them and mark them. You can mark it with just red lines so that you can see exactly where your center marks are. You can mark it with dots. You can mark it with a highlighter. You can mark it with special little stickers, and some of these stickers may very well coordinate with the way your machine works. Now, what if you don't have software? No software, no problem. It's still possible to hoop and precisely place your garment in the hoop so that you're going to get accurate embroidery. Another form of doing that would be to just simply stitch out a sample. I could make little dots showing the exact center, just like that. Lift out the little template grid that comes with your hoops and connect those lines. I won't try to be too perfect here, but I think you get the idea. When you look at this when it's finished, and I could do that with a permanent marker, I've got essentially the exact same thing I have here with my paper template. So that's kind of another way you can create a template by stitching it onto a piece of felt and using that as your placement. All right, what I did on mine, I've already got my dress hooped. Hope you can see this because there's a little bit of glare from the template. But I just simply measured. My design is about 1.5 inches wide and about 3 3/4 inches long. So I just measured the center point. Every design has a center point. Doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be symmetrical. Every design has a center point. We mark for that. We line that up with the grid that goes with our hoop. And now we're ready to take this over to the machine to stitch it. I only need a simple tear away for this. So let's wake up the machine by touching the screen. And my design collection that I chose this particular motif from comes from a USB collection. Lots and lots and lots of different designs on it, all different sizes for all different hoop capabilities. But I've already memorized it, so I'm going to pull it out of the memory. And in fact, I've already flipped it and rotated it so that it would be just the right angle up on the shoulder area. I'm going to touch set, I'm going to touch embroidery, and I'm going to slide this on. My machine is already threaded, and I can see that's right on the center, so I'm going to take my little target sticker off. Always make sure you have no fabric trapped under the hoop. Lower our presser foot, and be sure to lock that frame, and you are good to go. So we're ready to let this stitch and see a beautiful design form on our upper dress area. There, our embroidery's just about finished here. We take it off the machine, pop it out of the hoop, and I'm going to lay this on the table, smooth it out so that you can see it. There we go. We just trim a few of those threads, and we've got great embroidery added to a garment. Wasn't that easy? You can add embroidery to any garment you like. Be sure to visit the website. We've got instructions for you and some tips and techniques too.